Hi, my name is Pau and welcome to my channel. Today's video is going to be about books, and while I talk about reading and all that stuff, I'm going to be drawing some bookmarks for to be exact, and once again I'm going to be having something in my hands. I have to move because I have to put the drawing somewhere. I guess I should start with my reading journey so far. I think I have said this before, but I have always liked reading. I was actually quite obsessed with books. Since I was a kid, actually, I used to love reading books with my mom. And then when I got a bit older, it became a bit of a problem because my mom just will buy me a book and I will finish the book the same day she bought it, because I tend to hyper focus on reading. I still do, and I read quite fast, so a 400-page book will maybe take me 5 hours to read, which was a problem because books are quite expensive. But then when I was, I think, around 15, I discovered webcomics and mangas and manhwas and all that good stuff. And I have also said this before, I love seeing stuff. Maybe it's the artist in me, but I just love like all the little details and the coloring, the shading. I love the clothing, I love action stuff. So suddenly books were not that interesting. I was still reading, but not books. I was actually having a bit of trouble focusing in general with anything. So it was much easier to read a manhwa than it was reading 400 pages full of words. So I just started reading mangas instead of reading books. So from around 2015 to 2023, I read maybe like 10 books, max. And I read most of them on 2020 while at home, confined. I did read like hundreds and hundreds of webcomics and manhwas, but I was upset about not being able to read books. I was upset mainly because I knew I could not focus at all on most things, and when I could, as I just said, I would hyperfixate on something. Maybe not a book, maybe something random, which is not productive at all because I just spend hours and hours on stuff. Turns out I have ADHD. Fun. I'm also autistic, also fun, because I got diagnosed last year. When this video comes out, my hair, I'm about to turn 24 next month. The first week of May, I turn 24. That's not relevant right now, but if you guys want me to talk about how those two things affect my life as an artist, I could talk about that in a video. Going back to the books, I decided I didn't read almost anything up until last year, and that's because, as I mentioned on this video, I went to China at the end of 2023, and the flight from Spain to China is not a short one, so I needed something to do during all those hours, and I decided that it was the perfect opportunity to start with books again. I had tried to search for books that caught my interest for some time at that point, but I could not find much. I knew I wanted something with fantasy and with romance, but I was completely out of the loop by then. I didn't know what was being published, I didn't know what was popular anymore, and the few books that I did find interesting, I could not find them in Spanish because they were not translated yet, and I did not trust my English level that much because I don't know, I was reading the mangas and the webcomics in English, but there's like a really big jump between like the dialogue in a manga and reading a whole book in English, so I was having trouble with that too. After a lot of research and some help from a friend, I end up with Once Upon a Broken Heart, Neon Gods, The White Witch, and Assistant to the Villain. I'm not going to talk about those books today. I'm going to talk about the books in detail in other videos, but not today. I was obviously reading on my iPad for multiple reasons. Books are really expensive, books are really heavy, and books take a lot of space, which I did not have on my carry-on. And I also don't have space to put books in my room, so it was not ideal for traveling or having books at home, so iPad. And just like that, I started reading again. Quite often, actually, which I'm super happy about. So far this year, as I'm recording this, I have finished 46 books, I think. Not super long books, but I'm still proud about it nonetheless, because from 0 books to 46, that's still a jump. Also, I read mostly in English now because I decided that being afraid of not understanding stuff was getting me nowhere, so I just jump into it for random day, and I actually haven't had many problems with it. Obviously, depending on the genre, I have to search for more or less amount of words, but I'm fine with it. I don't think it's a problem. So since now I spend quite a big chunk of my free time reading, I thought that I could mix both art and books in the channel, and you might be interested in what kind of books I read. I mainly read romances right now, and I'm going to be completely honest. One, because that way if you're interested in book content, you know what to expect from me, and two, because I actually don't mind being honest about it. Most of these books are smut and monster romances, which tend to be together, they go hand by hand. And for me, reading is just a hobby. I know that a lot of people love like crying over books and getting sad and getting angry and learning and thinking, but right now I use reading to relax. That's why I usually find romances entertaining and easy to read. I obviously read other genres too, but just not as often because I tend to get burned out emotionally, mainly by heavy books. For example, The White Witch that I mentioned earlier. I love the book. I finished the book, but it was quite heavy for me. It has like the world building and the magic system, and it has a lot of drama and violence. So even though I love the book, I got a bit oversaturated while reading. That's why romances are usually my go-to option, because the plots are usually not that complex. They are like easy to follow. And don't get me wrong, I love like a heavy book from time to time, because I think a good book is a good book no matter the genre. And I have actually like read multiple genres, and I love most of them. I have read historical books, I have read memoirs, thrillers, fantasy, art books, classics, but right now I just read romances. So romance. And within the romance genre, I usually avoid contemporary romances unless I'm reading monster romances, because then I don't mind. But when it's like a normal contemporary romance, I don't think the tropes I like usually work with that kind of setup. Don't come for me, it's just my humble opinion. But I don't think, for example, enemies to lovers work well in an office. I think it tends to turn out a bit weird. So I usually go for fantasy or paranormal or sci-fi, or sometimes historical, because they also have like the magic systems and the world building and I don't know, pretty clothes. But since romance is the main genre, it's not as heavy. All this said, my plan is to mix both art and books by, in some of my videos, not all of them, by drawing bookmarks or stickers or illustrations related to books in general, or to books that I just read, while I talk about the books I just read. I must also say that I don't buy books, I don't buy physical books, because as you can see, there's not much more to my room, so there's no place for the books. Also, books are really expensive. So ebooks it is. Obviously, this means that I cannot do unboxing of books or show you my book collection, because I don't have one. So I'm going to focus on drawing while reviewing. I'm probably going to have a lot of spoilers in most of the videos, but I'm going to have a part with no spoilers, and I am obviously going to put like disclaimers and timeframes just in case you don't want to get spoiled about the book. Also, if you guys are interested in like vlogs where I'm reading in front of the camera and where I go into detail about the books that I'm reading, I can definitely try to do that too. Just leave it in the comments if you're interested in that. Now let's talk a bit about the bookmarks. As you can see, most of them are pink. That's because I like pink, but I know that not everyone likes pink, obviously. So in case of selling them, I will make a few color variations that I'm going to show you too, because I don't want to just sell pink stuff. This one, that was the first one, was basically inspired by the fact that I read books based on whether if I have fun reading and not whether if it's literally masterpiece. Because even if it were, I don't think my English is that good. English is my second language, obviously not the first one. and I haven't studied English since I was 14, and that was a decade ago, so I don't think I will be able to judge that. The second one, I think, is also quite obvious. Every time I read, I have the same problem and I do the same thing, because like around 80% of the time I try to just read a few chapters and I end up reading the whole book. The third one was supposed to be much simpler. It was supposed to be a really plain design, but something felt like was off, something was missing in the design, and it ended up being a huge pain in the ass to draw. The process was ew. I hated every second of the process, and I also didn't know which version to choose, so I now have two versions with different colors. And the last one was also a huge pain, because as you saw my original sketch, my first idea has nothing to do with what I end up doing. That is because halfway into drawing the plants, I remember that one of the books that I want to talk about has plant magic. So I changed my plan, and I'm going to use the flowers for that book and that bookmark, and I'm going to use, well, I used the books for this design. I think it makes much more sense now, but I also didn't know which version to use. So I have two versions of the same bookmark once again. And that was all for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and the 4 designs. Don't forget that everything is linked down below. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more content, and I will see you next time. Bye!